2, 1, live.
You're now watching Two Old Farts Making Noises.
Joe, do you want to know why some businesses succeed and some businesses fail? Why some businesses grow and some businesses don't? That's what this show is all about. Business, business, business.
All right, we're back.
We're back.
Okay.
Another week is here. Welcome back to the Lost Dollar Business Club.
Thank you,
We've
Michael.
got the old farts, and we've got an outraged citizen along with
That's
me, your
right.
host, Michael Matura.
I mean, John, who's over.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
Wow.
You know,
All
David,
right.
I've got some new ideas to update that ad, so we got to talk after this. It's going to be good.
Okay, that's great.
He's going to have
it's-
naked Tahitian dancing girls. He's trying to help.
Yeah.
us.
Well, that was
maybe
the one. That was the one we had before. Remember?
Very true. Yes, very true.
Well, as long as AI generates it, I think it's okay.
There you go. Hey, I'm all for AI because it's taken over the world, and I'm all good with it. In fact, I tried an AI thing last night called my wife gave it. It's called Hey Pi, HEYPI, and it's supposed to make you feel better. So she said, "Here, try it and talk to it." And I kidding around. I go, "My wife is a pain in the butt." And it said, "I'm sorry to hear that. Why is your wife pain in the butt?" I said, "Because," and I just made up stuff. And at the very end, I go, I'm just like fooling with you. I love my wife. My wife loves me. And at the very end, that's very good. I'm glad to hear that. Like it's just a psychologist. It's a AI to make people feel better. And she goes, "What do you think of AI now?" Because we use it for the show. And I said to her, "Until I have HAL from 2001 Space Odyssey, it's a cute toy. It's at its infancy, as far as I'm concerned. Once I have HAL, where I have an actual dialogue, then I'm happy."
Right. Yeah. You want the dialogue.
Yeah.
Well, we don't have hell, do we? But we're lucky enough to have John with us again. So
okay.
He's our our database of facts and fun.
He's kind of like Hal. He looks like him a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
Because you don't really see him because his computer just shows basically his head. There's
That's
he has no body. He's like,
well, that's AI generated too. So
that's right. John's just AI generated. So
I don't even exist. Yes,
that's very true. And I've known him for 20 years, and I've told him that since day one.
Right.
So it's a good thing.
Well, David, you shared. So we have a few topics today. They all kind of blend together and connect. We'll start off with EVs and go into e-waste and peak China. So stay tuned for Peak China. But let's start off with the article that David sent us. All of these automakers are excited about electric vehicles.
Okay.
And they have very ambitious targets, like BMW, 2 million EVs by the end of 2025. You've got Rolls-Royce. They want to have a totally electric lineup by 2030. That's maybe not that ambitious. That's a ways away, but maybe not that far away. And what else do we have? And even Ford, they want these 600,000 by 2026. So
fix or repair daily, really? They only make trucks that are decent. Everything else they make is crap. So they just recalled their e-Mustang or whatever. They just had a big recall on that.
Yeah.
So here's the problem I have with all of this. There was an article a couple weeks ago. It's either in the Economist or the Financial Times. And it's basically the people in the UK, the auto manufacturers and the tech guys in London were basically saying, until the government in London gives tax breaks, until they do manufacturing breaks, and went through this whole thing, EV is not happening. You can't get charging stations. You can't get people to work. It's expensive to start a plant. In the United States, the only place I see EV stations other than Target is at I forget the name of the gas station, like Wana Gas or something, right? There are gas stations that have like a restaurant because people have to sit there for 5 hours unless you have it in your house.
it's a conspiracy, Stephen. It's actually, you know, I think the people who really want this to be,
Conspiracy. I love conspiracies.
Oh, yeah.
I
The
think
lizard
the people
people
who,
are here.
the only people who want this to get to really happen are places like McDonald's, because every time you see a car parked somewhere being charged up, it's outside of a McDonald's. So yeah, I think the fast food industry is sponsoring EVs in a sort of a backdoor way, you know, allegedly.
But
Yeah.
but
Well,
I don't.
But
it's seen as that
you
because
talk about the US. We are encouraged daily in Europe to go electric, big electric.
Right.
That's great. I live in a row of terraced houses, so we don't have a driveway coming up. I look out my window. We live in an area where there's probably 500 or 600 houses scattered around, and wait for it, we have 3 places to charge our cars.
right.
Wow.
So
it's awesome.
and the argument is that it would be nice if we could put up more charging stations, but the electricity company thinks that the whole electric system will fall apart. So
Yeah, that's
been said in the U.S. too. That's
the
been
problem.
too.
You know, the
that's
thing
the
is, you
problem.
got politicians who are a bunch of monkeys, right? Right?
Oh,
They don't
sorry,
hold
John,
back,
we
John.
missed that. Could you just say that again, John?
Yeah, can you say that again, John? What'd you say?
look. We know the fact is that most politicians are a bunch of dumb monkeys.
I love this guy. Keep
Yeah,
going, buddy.
I mean,
I'm
they're
gonna
just
solo you.
pathetic. I mean, if you want to go electric, have a total plan, right? You can put all these charging stations all over the place, right? It's going to cost a bunch of money, but you don't have an electric system grid that can support it. Just like your boys in Holland are saying, you know, and that's another good couple of trillion in investment that needs to happen. Add to that, right, that the laws of physics, we don't have the minerals to complete this the way the politicians are dreaming it up. It's just not going to happen. I mean, if the UK goes totally electric, we consume all the copper in the world. Period. I mean, and that's just one country.
John, on the plus side, just think about all those small children will have some work to do in the mines.
Yes.
Well, that's important. Yeah.
Yes.
And just think you only have to pay them
all of
$1.
Yeah, we will
I
get
mean,
full employment in Africa, which is good.
And also in South America, because Bolivia has the largest lithium mine on the planet.
Now, if we're lucky, you know, most of them will die, and so we'll have population control, which is important. You know?
Oh yeah.
It sounds like the ideal political answer to everything.
Conspiracy too. Yeah, conspiracy.
Yeah. So you know, this is what cracks me up about the whole EV thing. You know, and I don't understand car companies how they can project that they're going to have in 5 or 7 years a complete EV. You know, what are they going to just be sitting there?
One of the issues, John, is here in Europe that most of these really old city centers just literally cannot take any more car pollution.
Right.
Yes.
It's affecting health. It's literally eating away at buildings.
Yes.
And so they've said, right, well, we'll ban everybody from coming in. So we put a ring around it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we don't have a public transport really that really works. Some cities do, some cities don't. So, we'll have a compromise. Anybody who's got an EV can come in to the area and do it. It's the same problem that the delivery companies have. There's a company who's tied up with Hyundai. They're one of the other investment companies is BlackRock. And can't remember the third one off the top of my head. And they are UPS, and they're currently trying to produce electronic vans, because what's going to happen is this donut, this last mile, getting into city centres, no trucks are going to be allowed in. So I think in a strange sort of way, that's what's pushing these companies to go electric. Because
unintended consequences. I mean, this is the problem. And John makes a really good point about the lack of planning, is that it's not a comprehensive solution. And it feels like
absolutely not
trendy. It feels like it's a trendy conversation, and that's why they're doing it, which sounds absurd.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, if you looked, if you look on social media, you'll see that are running up almost one-on-one of the adverts for continuous amounts of EVs. Lots of Chinese companies coming into the European market. So you'll have an advert for a Chinese car, and underneath, somebody will very kindly post a picture of a totally burnt out Tesla. I mean, there's only things left of it. It's just the tires. And they're a big problem on the motorways because when they catch fire, they have to have a special unit to come along and pick them up, and the normal recovery companies don't want anything to do with them. So, yeah, it's this whole EV thing. It's complicated.
Well, what do you do with the EVs that are obsolete? I've seen photos of all of these fleets of electric vehicles that are just dead and useless, unable to be reused.
Well, that's part of what they didn't think about, right? This is what we always do as a population. We're going to get out of the AI thing, but we're like, let's do this. It's like, we're not really worried about? We go A, B, C. We forget the rest of the alphabet to get to Z. And then all of a sudden, it's like, oh, what are we going to do with these batteries? Oh, what are we going to do with this? What are we going to do that? Oh, there's going to be pollution. Oh, we're going to still have to generate electric. It's like, with all the technology, with all the smart people we have, I'm finding it hard to believe that you can't make a solar powered car with the panels that can go endless. Endless.
It's just gone bust.
Right. But I'm just saying, I don't know why. BYD, I think, is the largest now EV company in the world. They've outdone Tesla. They're number one, of course, in China because they're Chinese. I've seen their designs. I would buy one. Now, I'm not an EV fan. I'm a petrol head. I want to hear boom, boom, but I would buy one. They are gorgeous, right? Tesla to me it's cute. Elon, came out, oh, look what we're going to do. Yeah. Okay. But it wasn't his. It was some other guys that he bought out, if you will, or took over the company, right? So, but at the end of the day, no one thinks about what are you going to do now with 10,000 or 20,000 or 1 million cars. In the old days, with a combustible, right, car, go to the junkyard, crush it, sell the scrap metal, do whatever. Here, I can do that, but what do I do with the battery? It's like I talked to somebody at BMW about the i9 they had, or whatever, their electric car that was like looking like a supercar. Yeah. And I said, the guy goes, the battery's great for 7 years. I go, oh, then what happens? He goes, then you replace it. I'm like,
a new one.
What? Well, it's okay because you can buy a thing to do that, right? And I was like, tell me more. And I said, what are you going to do with the battery? He goes, we don't know. He says, we replace them. He goes, and they haven't been replaced yet. They start getting replaced either this year or next year. I forget. But he was telling me they don't know what to do with them because.
Well, not only that, Steve, they don't have the people trained
to do it.
Mechanics to do it. Yeah. So that's another issue.
It's just bad all the way around because we're not thinking. But back to what I was going to say, I don't understand with all this technology and all the brain power we have, why you can't have a solar roof that powers your car. I mean, I understand why, because gas companies don't make money, electric companies don't make money. I've got to believe there's technology out there that I put my car outside, or even Moonlight does it, but it will power me to go thousands and thousands of miles.
Yeah.
So that's why when people talk about
hydrogen, they did have one. It was a Dutch company called Lightyear.
Okay.
Their model, the first models they sold were 225,000 euro.
Okay.
And they were going to bring it down to 150 something or other, and now they've gone bust.
Right, because nobody wants it.
And I think now people are just the vultures are just waiting to come around and pick up the pieces.
But that's what's my point. That's what's sad. You have all this technology and all these brains, and I'm going to go back to something I say almost every week. Nikola Tesla had his free energy tower that JP Morgan backed until they realized they weren't going to make money. And if we would have gone forward with that, and the plans are out there, all these billionaires, why don't you just build his friggin' tower and do the free energy? Oh, that's right. Then I can't become a trillionaire. So it all really revolves about me.
Conspiracy 3, but there's truth in that. That's the thing.
There's a lot of truth.
A lot of truth in that. And remember, Tesla. Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club.
All right, let's go back. Well, no, let's go back to what you're going to say. Tesla, what? And then
Well, I mean,
David
just
ran it.
remember that Tesla, after he died, the FBI was the ones to take all of his,
All his documents,
all
yeah.
his documents and hide them away. So
Yeah.
What's in there? Will we know? Maybe at some point.
But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
it's just, you have these people and they don't care. All they care about. I give Nick. I've read books about him. I've read his notes. I've got a whole special thing. Fascinating guy. You know, he's probably, his IQ is off the charts. Looney, I'm sure, as well. But all the billionaires today, and Elon Musk, I know you're not doing jack as far as I'm concerned. None of them are. It's nice you have an electric car company. It's going to kill the planet. It's nice you want to go to Mars. It's nice you have some spaceships. But I don't see anybody really doing something to what the Nikola Tesla did, which is I can give free to make the planet go to the next step. And until that mentality happens, I don't care what you want to do, EVs, you want to do this, we're doomed. Let's just be realistic, right?
I mean,
Global change is killing us, so we're done.
It's taking the greed or the profit motive too far.
Yeah.
Because if you think that everything you monetize everything, you lose things like valuing free energy. I mean, there are probably plenty of people talking about free energy and studying it, but the backing isn't there.
Right.
The profits aren't there.
It goes back to my point. Freaking government, which is supposed to step in when private enterprise doesn't provide the solution and provide the roadmap. You know, there are a bunch of fraudulent monkeys, right?
Yeah.
They just don't give a damn, because if they gave a damn, they'd put something together,
Right.
and you know, we'd get somewhere. But you know, they're concerned with the 2-year renewal of their seat, or the Senate,
and the lobbyist,
right? And the lobbyists control these boys, you know, here in Europe and everywhere.
Well, I hope this show and this topic generates interest in people who are watching it to actually get involved, because there has to be the will of the people that takes down these monkeys and shows them, look, we need real leaders who are actually going to do the work.
That's funny. I like that. There are no real leaders. They're all a bunch of pussies. I hate to say this. Even the ones who start out like, I'm going to change everything and I'm going to do this. Once they get there, they either get beat up and they're like, enough's enough. Yeah. Or like they're told, get in line, or you're not going to be here. And the lobbyists where you need your money from aren't going to do it. So unless you come from a district where everybody knows you and they love you, you got a problem. You know.
But one of the crazy things is, the other thing that Michael touched upon at the beginning of the show was about e-waste, and there is so much stuff which is thrown away, which is worth millions and millions, maybe billions of dollars on a yearly basis. And nobody's picking that up. Nobody's because it seems like it's better to earn $1.1 billion to sell the product in the first place, and that's less of a hassle than the billion you could make if you were recycling everything.
Yeah,
so it just seems to be like a
perfect segue. That's your perfect segue. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah, no, I was going to say what we need is something that forces the manufacturers of waste, essentially, right, with their product, they have to be responsible for recycling it. Probably that would change the dynamic, but that's
not. You have that again. You have that again in Europe. You have it also with tins, and which have now put money back on, deposit money back on. But the crazy thing is, and electronics, the crazy thing is that you are encouraged, told, must do, whatever, to take it back to the dealer.
Yeah.
So the manufacturer says, well, okay, it's fine, but you've got to do everything. You've got to store it. You've got to pack it all up. You've got to send it back to the original manufacturer, and that's where it goes wrong. That it's like it's a sausage factory, and the sausages only come out one end. They don't keep going around in circles.
Well, now you're talking about the circular economy, which is something that probably John and Stephen can tell us a lot about too, is that even just the thinking of how an economy works, they talk about products from cradle to grave. Well, that grave needs to turn into a recycling plant where it should be created where it's easy to disassemble, it's easy to repair. Right to repair laws, that's what this touches on too. It's very important that people have the right to repair the things that they own. Hard to do with some electronics, of course, but it's something to do, something to think about. But are we really getting at a circular economy? Could this actually be the saving grace to say, well, if we get manufacturers in the whole pipeline responsible for recycling in some legislative way, then we could create an economy that says, well, when the waste is there, we're going to do something positive with it.
No, it's not going to happen because the lobbyists are not going to let it happen.
It was interesting, the article you sent, Michael, which I had the opportunity to read today. But all these alternativos with their goat wool socks on and save the planet and everything else, they seem to ignore the most obvious thing. It's all right to save the whale. I used to save the whale, but it got too big and we had to throw it out. We had to throw it out of the bath. But and do this and save that and everything else. But they're the ones that are consuming all this stuff. They're consuming all this electronics, and they seem to be totally, they're talking to each other about let's save the planet on a mobile phone, and when the mobile phone doesn't work anymore, they throw it in the trash.
And actually, and America throws away millions of phones a year, millions of electronic devices, and we're talking about. Now we're seeing something like 50 million tons of e-waste every year globally. And a lot of that from Asia and a lot of that from the United States.
Oh, don't get going on Asia yet. But on the phones, though, really quick, when I do my phone, I actually take when I get a new phone, I take it to T-Mobile, which we know I love.
Yeah.
But T-Mobile takes my phone and I guess they recycle it and refurbish it and sell it, which is great. So that's perfect. So I don't just throw even with the laptop. We brush it clean, and I give it to when I get a laptop, I go to Apple and go here, even though my laptop is whatever, it's okay. Who has a dog?
Who's got the dog? The dog doesn't like the topic. Yeah,
I know. I see that.
Yeah.
No, but seriously, Stephen, it's nice to you to fly the flag again for your favorite telecom company. There are other telecom companies available on the planet.
No,
but you don't know. You only assume that T-Mobile are doing something with that. They might just chuck it in the trash. It's going to end up in Guyana, in Africa anyway.
Yeah, it goes in a container, and you're absolutely right. Send it to
Africa.
I mean, there's a 1 out of 10 chance that it actually gets recycled because the U.S. only recycles 15% of our e-waste. So
and all through T-Mobile. So there you go.
The thing is, the product is difficult to recycle, right? The circuit boards are difficult.
No, it would appear not, John, because they just burn them. They chuck everything and they burn them on huge fires, and all the toxins come off all this plastic because it's single-use plastic, and what's left over are the precious metals, and extremely poor people / children go into the ashes and pull all this stuff out.
Okay.
That's that's outrageous. Yeah, it is.
Right. Yeah,
what are you doing about it? Nothing.
People need to know.
Yeah. I mean, it's difficult to get it. That's a pretty barbaric way of of getting to the raw materials. But
that's what they do.
Yeah,
we do that.
And that's
part of remember, John. It's the sausage factory. The sausages have left the factory. And the money's been made. Somebody's bought them. Yeah. They're not interested in putting them. Putting them back to something else.
It goes back to what I said earlier. Everyone talks through their butt. Nobody does anything. Even these companies, I was reading an article about Shell and Mobil, like, well, we're going to be clean energy. They have to say crap to get through. They understand at some point fossil fuels are running out, so they're going to pivot. But they'll pivot over the next 100 years if we're still here. It's like all these Apple and the rest of them. Give us your stuff. Nobody cares. They just have to say it for this ESG. They have to say it to look good for the 14-year-olds that are going to whine and cry. And then the 14-year-olds who whine and cry that are so woke, they're the worst offenders.
That's right.
So it's like enough. It's like either do stuff or don't. When I was a kid, back before electricity, they would do like save the planet things. And I would be involved in all that. And I would try to do it and be the best I can. But then I'd see these adults who were doing it that day. And the next day they're doing what they shouldn't be. And I'm like, this is hypocritical BS. And that's part of the problem the globe has. And I know you're going to get off on China later, John, and that'll be fun. North America has it, Central, South, Europe, everybody. There's nobody, everyone talks a great game. The 3% of the population that does it, good for you. It's the other 97%, and probably some of us on this are the same. No, it's the same thing. Like, everything we do is towards money and got it. But nobody really wants to save the planet, because there was one of my friends said to me, he goes, I'm going to die. I'm like, congratulations. And he said, what am I saving? He says, the generation that's after me, they're worse than we are. He says, so why am I says, I'm going to enjoy my car. And he has tons of cars and planes. He said, I'm going to enjoy every single one of them. And I'm not going to, and you know what? If they want to clean it up when I die, let them do it. He says, I'm tired of trying to be eco this, eco that, and nobody cares. And so after a while, I can see their point where it's like, yeah, enough's enough.
Yeah,
Like, I'm tired of
that's sort of a cop out,
Yeah.
right?
Not really. I understand this point. Yeah,
If
I
we all
understand
do
his
that,
point.
if we all take that attitude, then
Right.
nothing gets done.
Well, that's what's happening, John. Nothing's done. CO2 is going up. The greenhouse effect is already there. We're supposed to go up like,
which is not even the only thing. I mean, people
Right.
talking about CO2 like that's the only thing. But
no, there's tons of stuff, but I'm just saying one of the things.
Oh
right?
yeah, no, I
Yeah,
know. But I want to
pollution in
point
the
that out.
city. Yeah, the pollution that David just brought up in the city. Like listen, born and raised in New York, which I know none of you know. When I go to New York, I like to walk around and smoke a cigar, and I enjoy that. Back in the day, I still do it now. But I remember back in the day, you know how the buses would blow all the black soot on you,
Right.
like when I smoked a cigar. I was on a corner. I never forgot this. This is like in 2000. I'm smoking a cigar, and this lady looks and goes, "That's disgusting." And I'm thinking, I won't even tell you what I was thinking. But for you that know me, you know what I was thinking. Anyway, this bus pulls in front of us, and it pulls away, and all this black crap. Now I had moved away from her because I didn't want to say anything. But all this black smoke goes right into her face, and as it left and the light changed, and I passed her, I went, "Yeah, that's healthier for you." And I just kept going. I'm thinking, lady, you live in New York City. If you're worried about my cigar smoke, that's what you're worried is going to kill you. I don't want to be rude or anything, but between the 12 million cars, the buses, the manholes,
chemicals in our water,
all that, you're worried about my cigar smoke. Yeah.
The trace carcinogens in our water. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Europe. So some good news, I suppose, is that Europe actually, even though per capita generates more e-waste, small continent, they actually lead the world in e-waste recycling with 42%.
Wow.
So maybe there is something to be learned from Europe in terms of how they're creating maybe a circular
for some things. One of the biggest issue at the moment which was the reason why it started me off on this thing when I was in the UK, were single-use vapes.
Oh yeah.
First of all, because it was being sold everywhere. So I was in a DIY store, and it was just there. So didn't seem to be an age limit on it. But outside of that age limit of if that's acceptable or not, this stuff are single-use plastics, and there's a lithium battery in it.
Yeah.
So they get vaped and they get just thrown off the street, in the trash, everywhere.
And they
same issue in Europe.
And that's
same in Europe.
That's a million of them a year. Is that what they said?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A billion.
Yeah. Now it's more.
And again, it's one of those things. We've solved the problem of tobacco with young people. We've given people who have a tobacco issue, an alternative. It's called vaping, and that's brought all its own problems, but not in the same problem area as health.
Well, no, they say vaping has a big. They say vaping has a big health issue, and that's why now in the United States they're trying to make vaping. You have to be 21 or older because Now, I'm not a scientist, and I never claimed to be one, but I understand from the vaping because there's the liquid and the this, and it gets into your lungs. It's a whole thing. They say it's almost worse than cigarette smoking, and I was like, and now that they're doing flavors and all this other stuff, it's like worse for you. Like back in the day, they did Joe Camel because he was cool. right? So now with the vaping, it's a whole different thing.
Yeah.
So vaping is not a healthy thing
No,
at all.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah,
not a good
remember-
alternative.
less healthy.
Do you
for
remember the
both.
Marlboro man who he ended up dying of
Yeah.
cancer, lung cancer?
Yeah.
That was
Well, there's 5 of them. In
sort
fact, John Goodman at one point, the famous actor, was a Marlboro man.
Oh wow.
He was one of that was one of his first gigs as a Marlboro man. But the original one, yes, he passed. And John Goodman, I think, and a couple other guys were that. Then in I want to say in the 80s and 90s, there was the Camel cigarettes had Joe Camel, right, wearing a leather jacket, really cool for get the kids going. And yeah, now with the vaping, there was this whole thing, and I know they're trying to change the age. Some states are trying to outlaw it, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. So it's sort of like nothing. Once again, everybody talks a good game, that they want to help the planet and they want to help everybody, but at the end of the day, they're only worried about how many there's a 1 and how many zeros and commas are after it. And
Well,
that's it.
million. So John was right. It's 1 million single-use vapes thrown out every week, just in the UK. Just in the
Wow.
UK.
Yeah.
That doesn't
Yeah.
include the US market. So
That's
John's
incredible.
Right. There you go,
Yeah.
John. That's
Yeah.
crazy. That's just crazy.
It
That's
is crazy.
Yeah.
Get the freedom and the flexibility of remote work in the lucrative tech industry. Bend your life around the world. Bandicoot is the premier course and community for thriving in a remote tech career. Join the revolution today. Bandicoot.com, official partner of the Lost Dollar Business Club. All right. Well, one of the big participants in the non-circular economy, China.
Yeah.
who were were almost world leaders in vaping. So,
They're world leaders in everything.
Cigarettes and actual cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're world leaders in everything. Let's just face it. Now we know John loves China. So John's about to go off.
I mean, I hadn't heard it put together so succinctly, the idea of peak China, which was apparently a couple of years ago. Research papers started coming out talking about this concept in terms of why the demographics of China are changing, why maybe the president is having difficulty controlling the party or needs to control the party for longer, and why there might be destabilization as a result of the slowing economic activity, sustainable economic activity in China.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Go on, John. Tear it into it, buddy. We know this is your subject, buddy.
No, I think I've read stuff like this before, and I think it's a little, I don't know. Forecasts like these are difficult, so one has to take them with a grain of salt. Look, they are, are they the manufacturing engine of the world? Probably, or very close to it. And their political system is geared for long-term success. Yeah, they have the problem of demographics, but so does Japan. And they're gonna take the technology and adapt. So if they don't have enough workers, they'll automate. They're probably already doing that. And I don't see them. They're not having the 9% growth that they had for 20 years, or so they'll have 2 to 3%.
Right.
Still pretty good. They're just they'll be an equally large economy, just like the U.S. and,
Well, that's what they're
and
saying.
Europe, right? So
It'll be that way. It could be that way for decades.
yeah,
which would change things, change the calculus of how business is done. I mean, there's a lot of legislation that's in the U.S. right now that's trying to be anti-China explicitly, limiting the technology that goes there. Even the I think highly misguided Restrict Act on banning TikTok. That act is a terrible act, but the idea was to block TikTok. That kind of language does change the.
But the other thing, China is trying to do a BRIC currency now, right? So
They
Brazil,
are
Russia, and no, they're trying. They don't have it. They want to have a digital BRIC currency. And Martin Wolf in the Financial Times, which is like the #1 economist pretty much on the planet, wins Pulitzers all the time, is basically saying that's great, but none of these countries that are trying to do it, like Russia, not stable. India, nice country, not stable. China, not so much. Brazil, and that's like he's saying. It's a great idea if you're going to trade within your circle, but it's not a great idea for like they're trying to overdo the dollar. And good, bad, or indifferent, the dollar is still the dominant payment system throughout the planet. So,
But we need to protect that, don't we? I mean, isn't that?
yeah, but we're not. We don't have. Listen, we don't have politicians that know how to protect jack squat. I think Biden he's doing, I guess, a decent job from everything I read and I can see. I mean, listen, I'm not a Democrat. I'm not a Republican. I'm nothing. I believe our political system is crap. So I'm like, I'm just waiting for the overlords, the lizard people, to come and just get it over with, and I'm a happy guy.
We're
But
already here, yeah.
I know. We're having dinner tomorrow, and they love scotch and cigars. It works well for me. But the problem is that whether you're in Congress or you're the Senate or you're in the Oval Office, it all seems that you cater to X. There's not been a great president since I don't even know when that really was like America is great, not this Donald Trump BS, but America is great because we're Americans. Of course, we think that. Like every country thinks they're great, but we're going to make sure we keep building ourselves up, not in a dictatorship, but a real democracy, which is why people like America. And we don't seem to do that anymore. It's all like whatever the 7 o'clock news says and whatever the poll is. On Saturday, I'm changing my opinion to X. And I'm like, why don't we just have a politician that has some balls? You know what I mean? Like just says, listen, here's what we're going to do. You're afraid of China? Okay, be afraid of China. But there's no reason to alienate them. They're a great trade partner.
That's right.
There's no reason to do this. Now, granted, China did economic blackmail to Australia, and they're doing with their Belt and Road program on a global basis. Now all these loans are coming due to these countries that can't afford it. So China's like, okay, we'll do this. We'll make this type of a deal. So they're basically doing stuff the IMF should be doing. But there's so much infighting globally with politicians and all this other crap, and we have to be richer than you. China's just like, screw it. Listen, Zhao is no different than Mao Zedong was or Ping or any of them, right? Their presidents are dictators for life. Their country has a plan in 2050 to be what it is. In the 1400s, they were the first ones to circle the world. In the 12th centuries with their mega ships. In like 1407 or 1413, Zhao said enough, and he closed China down. So now the dragon has been awoken again. Like Napoleon said, don't wake the dragon. And they did. And now the dragon's going to, in 2050, there's a military book that I read by a Chinese general. It's called China 2050. You want to know what China's going to do? China 2050. And you read that book, he wrote it like 5-10 years ago, and everything he wrote is basically coming XYZ to the letter. And that's
so
what people don't understand.
Do you think that America itself is, to be honest, America is one of the great imperialist empires on the planet.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you've got you got a new an old guy on the block who's just who's standing up, shaking himself down, and I think for some.
But most world powers last.
Ray Dalio did a study on that.
Yeah, the world powers only last 150 to 200 years. It's a cycle. So we're coming into an end of our cycle, and it's okay. We don't have to be X. And if not that I'm saying, hey, China, go ahead and do it, but I don't care who does it. Just there's a big.
You should care who does it. I think you should care who is setting the rules for the world order.
Yeah, there's no world. There's chaos. There's no world order.
For whatever you
Michael,
say, they might.
Are you frightened of them? Are you frightened of the Chinese?
Yeah, I'm years ago, Chinese, because you know what? If you criticize, he puts you in prison.
Or re-education camps.
Not when you're sitting in the U.S., John.
Oh, they have Chinese police stations.
Yeah, in the U.S.
In the U.S.
Yeah, they have them in the U.S. Chinese police. There's a whole article in the FT about that. 3 people just in Brooklyn just went to jail because they had a Chinese, basically Secret Service police station, and they would report on anything that was said that was negative to China. And they've been doing it for 20 years, and apparently we just caught them.
And your relatives back in the old country get arrested, not harassed, lose their jobs. Who knows what they do? The thing is, the Chinese have polluted our system because they've slowly crept in this all sorts of
academia, business spies, the police.
Here, guys. This book, I always show it. This book, everything you're talking about,
Yeah.
this is about the Chinese dissidents and the
You
spies,
have
the
shown
organization.
that. You have
It's a
shown.
great book. It's called Spies and Lies by Alex something or other here. But this is a great book. You want to read about what China's up to? This is a great book. I love this book.
Yeah.
But I'm not scared like you are about it, because here's the problem. I have Rick
I'm not
DeSantis
scared. I
in
think
Florida.
we have to stand up.
But Rick DeSantis is doing the same thing. He's trying to kill your First Amendment rights. He's doing the same
Well,
thing
that's-
as China, and he's doing it to companies, people. And Donald Trump was no different. None of these guys are any different. If you say something they don't like, they want to take you out. Now, whether they try it in the news or in the press,
Well, that was
they're
in
doing it.
response. That was in response to agendas of, you know, he was talking about sexualization of
Makes no difference. First Amendment right.
Education. Yeah, but in the education system, in the public education system.
No. Disney said we agree with LGBTQ, and he went after Disney. First Amendment rights. It makes no difference if I have a child and the teacher says, yes, there's gay people in the world. Okay, there's gay people in the world. That's a fact. I don't care that they tell my child that, because I would tell my child that, and you have to be tolerant. Rick DeSantis wants to take that. That's First Amendment. So when you say, "Oh, China,"
I don't know. Well, we'll bring this up to next time.
Yeah.
but I'm just saying, you talk about China.
We were talking about peak China here.
Right, but I understand that, but their big brother is no different than our big brother, except that their big brother.
That's what I disagree with. Because
I don't, because their big brother, their difference between theirs is
ideals.
wait,
Gentlemen, one at a time.
Okay, so their
Michael.
their big brother, in my opinion, yes, they'll shoot you and they'll send the 38-cent bill to your family to make you pay for the bullet, right? And they squander free speech and all that. America is getting to that point. The same thing. We have a constitution. Nobody follows it because read what's going on.
No, I understand that.
So-
No, there's definitely a tendency to regulate, over-regulate things that shouldn't be regulated, like free speech. I mean,
Right.
that's happening. That is a trend that's happening. Not
Right.
just it's happening in lots of places in America. That's true.
Yeah.
But that's my point. And
But
China's
at least we point toward these
Right.
ideals like free speech and liberal values and individual rights and property rights.
they're
Yeah.
all going away.
Don't
They're all going away.
look,
We
Steve.
can't let them
You
go.
become a China. I don't know. You love these guys. No,
I don't love them. I'm fascinated by the culture and the history. I don't want you to
It
be,
is
like take over the world.
Yeah,
But
don't
I
be
like the
fascinated
culture
by
and
the
the history.
culture and the
You
stuff.
can't understand your enemy until you understand their culture and their history, my friend.
Yeah.
And until
Don't be
then, it doesn't
fascinated
work.
with them. It's a very
Why?
simple. I rule the world. You
Okay.
will do what I tell you. And if you
Right.
criticize me, I'm going to chop your head off and your family. We do not accept any different point of view. What I say, it
reinforced.
goes. That's my philosophy.
It's a power game, not a liberal game.
Yeah.
All right. So basically, well,
If you like the Lost Dollar Business Club, then you should subscribe. If you like it that much, you should also tell a friend of yours. So you should subscribe and like. Also, you should put comments below so we know what you're thinking. Tell us what shows you want to hear. Just help us make it better.
So, who's lost $1 this week? And who's found $1 this week?
All right. Well,
One
that was exciting.
last book, Stephen.
yes.
Wait, but why? That comic strip over the past decade. This guy Tim Urban wrote a book
Right.
called "What's Our Problem?" about America's problems that you were actually talking about. It's a
Right.
great book. It's a 500-page read, but it's worth it. And the guy does talk about the difference between these power games versus these
Right.
liberal games, and I think that's an important distinction when we look at structures of society. So
I think it's a big game of Go, and I just laugh every day when I read what's going on. Like they want to do this. I'm like, guys, you don't realize if you blow up the planet, you blow up yourself. So I'm just like, it's a big game of Go. That's it. Anyway,
All
so
right.
the lost and found. What do we have, boys?
Yeah.
I got a good one for David.
Go.
Yeah.
So the Department of Food Science and Technology at UC Davis, University of California, Davis, has found that the carbon footprint of lab-grown or cultivated meat could
Right.
be up to 25 times worse for the climate than meat produced by raising and slaughtering farm animals.
Wow, David.
Okay.
because of how energy intensive it is
Yeah.
to produce the meat itself.
That's awesome.
Well, I'm having. What is that? Is that a lost or a
That's
found
I think
dollar?
that's a
Then?
loss.
That's a lost dollar, Dave.
Okay, good.
Oh my God.
John,
Yeah, I was gonna. No, I think Pacific West Bank is the Brazilians lost, and they're probably on their way out.
Yep.
Another one.
They're losing dollars as we speak. By the millions. So that's just a symptom of the banking system, and it's easy to move money. So the banking system has to sort of adapt. You could blame the Fed for that because they raised rates 400 basis points in less than a year and a half. So
okay. So that's a loss then, John? I take it.
that's a loss. Yeah, big time.
Wow.
All right. I know. All right. I'm gonna do two real quick. One's a good one. One's a bad one. The Phoenix Suns, I just read today in the Financial Times, wants to get rid of their contract with their bankrupt sports per cable provider, Diamond Network or whatever, and they want to do free. They want to produce free basketball games on, I guess, the net for their fans. So you don't have to pay. If you're local, you can watch free on the internet. So that's a win for the NBA in Phoenix if they do it. I like that. The loss is something we spoke about last week. I'm so happy about this. And it's not Rick DeSantis and his little white boots and his gay fearing stuff. It's about PwC Australia. They're firing more people and they're getting more fines because of the problem they had in Australia with the tax leak. And once remember I said all these auditors, they suck, you know what? But that's my point. So that's a loss, but in a good way. So made my point correct. So I'm very happy about that.
It's a win for Stephen, though.
There you go. Win for me, a loss for them. So
okay, so one. Okay, Stephen.
Yep.
That's one for you. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well it leaves me to finish off with something which I was quite excited to read this week. It's a new product called Billy Wonder.
Oh God.
And Billy Wonder, and it's going to bring a significant impact to reusable to the environment. It's actually reusable hemp diapers.
Okay.
So you smoke them and roll them.
Better than cotton.
Yeah, and you can put them in the washing machine. The only thing that's not recyclable there is a small area of the diaper which gets very badly fouled, and that will be thrown away. But the other diaper itself will be, you just put it in the wash. It's done by a Dutch company.
Of course it is.
Of course it is. And why is it called Billy Wonder? Because the Dutch word for bips or bottom or baby bottom is billen in Dutch. And so it's a bit of a wordplay, and so it's called Billy Wonder. So, the amount of diapers that go into landfill, if somebody could solve half of that problem, that for me
very nice.
Is a found
nice
dollar.
win.
That's a big win.
Very win.
All
very
right.
nice, David.
It catches on. If it catches on.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go buy some tomorrow.
For you.
There you go.
You're gonna have to import them.
I know, right? Gonna have to learn how to speak Dutch and put my finger in a dike. It's a whole thing. Anyway, guys, this was great. Everybody, thank you for listening. If you're on the podcast or if you're on YouTube, we're sorry you had to look at us. Don't forget to subscribe and like. Also, the Lost Dollar Business Club now has its own channel on the 20 Farts Entertainment channel. It's called Lost Dollar Business Club. And you can see all the Lost Dollar Business Clubs if you've missed any of them down below. And David and I will put all the links there.
Special thanks for John coming back.
John's coming back every week.
I want to see him.
All right.
Well,
you guys
we don't know if we want to see him,
right.
but he's coming back every week.
Michael, I'm not sure he's going to come back because the Chinese are going to arrest him.
That's true. The Chinese are in his neighborhood, so we'll have to see how that goes.
See him hiding in the pictures.
He's right there.
Right there.
Right there. Oh, look at those producers.
Classic.
I like those guys. I know. They must be brothers.